Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Today we are going to talk about the top 10 questions you need to ask before you consider buying a used generator. All right, guys, welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. It is January 29th, 2022, and this is episode 63 of the Workshop Podcast. This week, I threw out on social asking for questions about generators because I want to do an ongoing series on teaching you guys more about generators, sharing the knowledge I have. And so this one was great. Let's get right into it. Question came from Rob on Instagram, and he said, I'm seeing a lot of used generators online. What are some of the brands and things to look out for when buying a used generator? Well, I've bought used generators before, and I've had pretty darn good luck over the years. So I decided to put down a list of the top 10 questions that you can ask both yourself and the seller to hopefully make this a better experience for you and hopefully not waste your hard earned money. So let's dive right in. Number one. So the first three questions are going to be questions you're going to ask yourself before you ever even contact the potential seller. Okay. So number one, straight and forward. Is it a good deal? So start by looking through Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. If you're up here in the Great White North, check out Kijiji as well. See what comparable models, makes, and whatever that look about the same. See what they're selling for online, and say, okay, are you kind of in that 10 to 20% range? Is it 10 or 20% higher, 10 or 20% lower? Just take a look. Another rule of thumb when looking online to see if it's a good deal is, for me, is it at least half or less than the brand new price? So is it half as much as buying something brand new? If it's more than that, I'm probably going to skip and go ahead and buy a new one or look for a better deal. Now, the other thing to ask though is this deal too good to be true? Is it a 9,000 watt generator that has 4 running hours on it and they're asking $25, but they want you to send them the money, via Bitcoin or Western Union or something like that? So, take a look. Is the price good enough for you if it fits in your, in your budget? And is the price not too good to be true? So the very first one is it a good deal? Number two, can I get a comparable generator for the same price? Now, what I mean is, say you're looking at a 5,000 watt Honda generator, and we'll talk about brands in a minute. But just for instance, say they want $1,000 for it. Well, can you get a Furman, 5,000 watt generator brand new for that price or even a little bit less? So start looking around and say, okay, do I want to buy used? Am I stuck? Am I married to this one brand? Am I okay with buying a different brand? Because a lot of times when you start looking around, especially if you wait on sales, start looking back through, like with Amazon, at least you can go back through Camel, and look at the pricing history of different things, but work your way back and just say, okay, do I really want to buy used, or could I buy a new one of a different brand for a similar price? To me, that is important. And within this, also, one consideration is the warranty. So, am I going to buy used, or can I spend just a little bit more and buy a new one with a warranty? Because most warranties for generators, number one, if you're buying it used, it's probably past its manufacturer warranty date. And if it isn't, a lot of times they only honor the warranty for the first person. So just remember that. Okay, is warranty important or not? But really, just can I get a comparable generator for close to the same price, brand new in store? Because at least then your ass is covered. Now, number three, and this one goes back to Rob's question: what brand is it? So now, as far as brands go, there's a lot out there, but for me, my top two brands are Honda and Generac. Seems like they kind of separate themselves in quality, runtime, durability. Now, that being said, those two brands are gonna fetch a little higher price on the resale, the after sale market. So if they're used, expect to pay a little more for a Honda or a Generac. Now, you take one step down, and there's a lot of brands that, when you start looking at the different ratings and reviews online, they all seem to do really well. And one that I've been quite impressed with lately that I've been seeing a lot of really good reviews on is the Westinghouse brand. I personally have a Furman and I love it, but some of the second tier generators out there, you got Westinghouse, Champion, and Furman, which are basically identical, Duramax, and then Predator from Harbor Freight. So any of those brands, if you're looking at Honda and Generac, you're going to pay a little extra on the used market. But any of the other ones, if a lot of the other questions we're going to work through later on are okay, they're a good brand to look at as well. So what brand is it? And is it a brand that I want to buy? So those are the first three questions to ask yourself before you even contact. Now, the next five are going to be questions to ask the seller before you even meet up. Because if any of these are red flags, throw them out and go on to the next generator, because you can always say no. Remember that. You're never committed until your money has exchanged hands. So question number 4 out of the 10, how old is the generator? Now, if they can't answer that question, walk away right away. When was it bought? Do they have the original receipt? And then when you know how old it is, get the model number from them. Then you can look up and say, have there been any major problems with these generators? So look for recalls. If there's been recalls, probably stay away from it because it may be past the time. But if it's too old, you might not be able to get replacement parts for it either. And in our mindset with preparedness and being able to fix things and being able to keep extra parts on hand, that is absolutely huge, especially when buying used, because of course used always has a little higher probability of needing replacement parts. So how old is it? And that isn't a deal breaker per se, because if it's old but in good shape, you might get a really killer deal on it. You might get a steal of a deal, which would be awesome. But so just ask, how old is it? And if they have the original receipt, even better, because then if they have the original receipt, they're probably the type of people that take care of things, keep good records, and they have nothing to hide because they're showing you the paper receipt. So keep an eye on that. Now, number 5, this is probably one of the most important ones. How many run hours are on the generator? So first thing, if you ask them and they don't have a clue, they're either, I don't know, dumb or lying. So either way, maybe stay away from it. Now, a lot of the bigger generators are going to have a little digital or analog gauge on them. So check it out, turn it on and see how many hours have been run. But just by asking somebody how many run hours has been on a generator, you're never going to get a straightforward, honest answer. Just nobody. I couldn't tell you without going and looking at my gauge. Last time I checked my generator, I thought I bet I got about 30 run hours on that. I checked it and it was 7. We never know. Some people overestimate, some people underestimate. But one thing is for certain, the human memory is bad. And to try to estimate over long periods of time, never going to do it. So ideally, buy a generator that has an hour meter on it so that you can legitimately know how much wear and tear has been on that generator. Because, it doesn't matter per se how old a generator is. The real, proof is in the pudding is how much runtime has been on it. Because every generator is basically made with so many hours in mind. And if your generator has 1,000-hour runtime, and you can look some of that up online as well. You can look up the models and see what is the average runtime lifetime of most of these generators. And, if you're halfway through that, great. You might be starting to look at replacing parts at that point. But if you're 70, 80, 90% through the average expected lifespan of a generator, run the other way. Don't waste your money, because all you're going to end up having is a really expensive hunk of scrap metal at that point. So number 6, and this one is just as important as how many runtime hours, but how was it used, or what was it used for? Sorry. Home use versus rig pigs using it in the oil patch use, totally different. First thing I would say is, if it was used by a tradesperson who works outdoors, stay away from it. It's probably been exposed to too much weather, too much dirt, too much dust, too much debris, too much mud. Don't do it. Don't ever buy one from the oil patch if you can help it, because I know personally, when I worked as a rig assistant on a co-rod rig, man, we threw those things around. They got covered in oil. They sat in the back of the truck unheated for months on end. They're jostled and beat around on gravel roads. Just, find out what it was used for. And, if it looks like it was used for something other than they tell you, again, a red flag, right? And remember, guys, trust your gut. When you're talking to people, I want to say most people are honest. I think they are, but I think more so we can trust our own instincts. So if this person's giving you the heebie jeebies or they seem a little shady or it looks like maybe this maybe fell off the back of a truck somewhere, don't do it, because the worst thing you're ever going to want to do is end up buying some hot material that ends up getting repoed from you from the cops because it turned out it was stolen, that kind of thing. But, you know, find out what it was used for. If it was used for home use, well, that's probably ideal because most people, you know, they only run it for power outages. And if they're really good, every 2-3 months to keep it up and going. So keep an eye on that. What was it used for? Number 7, again, almost as important. And this one you're going to be able to see for sure, but where has it been stored? You know, again, if it's home use and it's been in an old man's garage underneath a tarp and just stored there without dust and dirt getting on it and just pulled out to be used, great. Has it been stored outdoors all the time, like some people love to do? They just throw it out there and leave it out year round and have the weather fall on it. Well, then stay away from it. Worse again, has it been thrown in the back of a truck and just left there? Because, you know, trucks get snow and rain and everything held in there, beaten and pounded and moving. I would rather it just sit outdoors. At least it's not getting jostled around and beat up and whatever. But yeah, if it's been stored in a garage, go for it. If it's been stored, you know, if it's been rode hard and put away wet, then maybe just skip it, you know. But all of these are, you're kind of trying to add up the red flags. You know, if there's one, might not be too bad. But if you got bad answers to 2 or 3 of these questions, don't bother. Trust me. Now, the next one to me is my magic question. This is how I know whether a lot of times I should buy a generator or not. It's not the only one, but this is what I like to ask, because people usually are honest with it. And you want to ask them, hey man, why are you replacing this generator? So question 8 is, why are they replacing it? And most times, if they're honest, and most people will be because they're not usually expecting that question per se, but what they tell you, it's going to tell you a lot. So, first thing, if they say, you know, well, honestly, I thought it was getting a little bit old and I thought I was due to replace it before something went wrong with it. Now, they might not add that before something went wrong with it, but if they say it's getting kind of old and it was time to replace it, that to me, read between the lines, is it's not working the way it should, or it's older than I'm comfortable with, or things aren't acting on it like it probably should. So if they say that, to me, that's almost a deal breaker right there. I would say, nah, probably stay away from it. But you know what? If they say something like, I need a bigger generator, I need something that'll run my house better, I need something that's lighter that I can move around better, or we've decided we want to switch over to natural gas. Those are always really good green flags. Can we say that? Non-red flags that say, you know what? This generator's been working up until this point. They're happy with this generator. They just need to change for another reason. So to me, that magic question number 8, why they're replacing it, can end up telling you more than you ever need to know on whether it's worth buying or not. Okay. And then 2 questions, the last 2 questions, these are the ones you need to ask yourself and the person before you spend any money at all. Okay. And they go hand in hand. I wasn't sure what order to put them in, but number 9 is, how does it look physically? I mean, you can ask them all the questions you want. They can send you all the shined up pictures over Facebook they want from just the proper angle so that it doesn't show the big dent in the side of the gas can, whatever. You know, you can only tell so much on the internet. So once you're physically in the presence of the generator, 2 questions. Number 9, how does it look physically? So some of my one of my keys to troubleshooting is use your senses. You got sight, sound, and smell. These are the 3 things you're going to check over on this generator. You might think, smell? Don't worry, Tim. We'll get there. So number 1, sight. Just look the generator over. First off, open up the air filter. That's usually on the side. There's usually just a clamp on there. Open it up, and you want to look. Number 1, you're going to see, okay, if it's full of dirt, dust, debris, and a dead mouse, they haven't been taking good care of that filter or that generator. That is a good sign that the generator's been working harder than it needs to, and it hasn't been well taken care of. So that's first. Then check for bad dents, especially in the gas tanks, because that metal's a little bit thinner. So that's going to tell you if they've been careful with it, if it's been thrown around, beat up. Check for dents in the frame. If there's dents in the frame, that's a really bad one. Look for rust, because, you know, that kind of stuff. starts eating away at the frame and it breaks down. But honestly, I look for dents and dings to see how well it's been taken care of. And then pull the dipstick and you're going to look at the oil and see how brown and burnt it is. And if it's really black, it doesn't mean that it's a deal breaker, but it's another thing that tells you, boy, I don't know. They haven't been taking good care of this. The oil hasn't been changed in a while, because everybody's going to tell you, oh yeah, I changed the oil after 25 hours and then I change it after every 100 hours of runtime, right? They're all going to say that, but you're going to know. You look at it and see, is it like pitch black, like black coffee that's been overcooked, that kind of stuff? Then that's another one. Now, smell. Like, how does smell work? Well, first thing, you're going to take that dipstick and you're going to smell it. Does it smell burnt? If it smells burnt, you've got some issues. Worse than that, if you smell gas, then you really have some issues, because the oil is getting beyond the pistons and you're getting a gas oil mix there. And that means that the piston rings are starting to wear down, or that you're just, everything's getting loose in that engine. And if you can smell gas in the oil, stay the hell away from it. Run, run, run. Then open your fuel tank and put your nose down to it. Don't get high, don't huff the gas, but smell it and be like, okay, is it skunky smelling? If it is, that means it's been sitting for a long time. There's a chance it might not want to run, but it also means there's a good chance the carburetor might be gummed up. But we'll talk about that. But yeah, so smell the gas, and then you'll know, well, okay, they've been rotating gas, whatever. And then sound. You want to let it run, let it listen to it, and just listen, say, okay, do I hear anything weird? The big one is, do I hear any metal on metal? If something's grinding, you don't want it. Do you hear any weird rattles, any weird vibrations, things that seem like they're letting go? Now, of course, this is a tough one because you've never heard this generator run before, but just let it run for a while and just listen and say, okay, everything sounds fine. It sounds like it's running. Let it warm up, let it run for a while, because sometimes generators work good cold. And then when they get a hot, they start acting weird. So just let it run for a bit and just give it a listen. If anything makes you uncomfortable, doesn't sound like it should be, then get the hell out of there. And then number 10, and this is kind of it kind of goes in with that, but literally, does it run? So you can ask the guy that question beforehand when you meet them, and that's great, but people do lie. So, you get there. Here's the thing. If you ask them, does it run? And they say yes, and then you go to start it up, or they go to start it up and it doesn't run, you can leave. Just leave. Don't worry about it. That's, to me, is not worth it. Now, here's the thing though. Just because it doesn't run doesn't mean you don't want to buy it. So let me tell you a couple of stories. So the first one is a generator I didn't buy. This was years ago, living in Nova Scotia. And the guy come by my store where I worked at Home Hardware, and he's like, hey, I hear you got a generator, or I hear you want to buy a generator. And I was about $500 saved up. I didn't tell him how much I had, and his price was pretty good. It was like $300 and some for the generator. He said, I got a really nice King generator. It was a 5,000 watt at the time. He says, I got it stored out at my house. He said, come on out tonight. The thing runs, it purrs like a kitten, starts up first pull every time. I thought, oh, well, that's pretty good. If that works, well, then maybe I will buy a used generator. So off I went that night, and it was a cold, cold night. It was dark, and I would get to his house, and he has a house, and then they have an old mobile home next to him. I think they're using it for storage. He's like, come on in. He didn't have a flashlight with him or nothing. I didn't have my phone, a phone at all at that time. He says, well, this thing will start right up. And he starts pulling and pulling and pulling, to the point where I almost got embarrassed for the guy. The thing wouldn't start for nothing. And I was thinking personally, if I was going to sell a generator, the first thing I do is I go out and start it long before the customer ever gets there, so that I know it's going to start for them. So he told me it started. When we got there, it didn't start. That wasn't, to me, that's a deal breaker, because number one, if he's lying about that, what else is he lying about? Okay. Now, here's situation number 2. And in that situation, I ended up buying a brand new King, because I think he wanted like $300 or $350 for it used, and I could buy a new one for $500. I wasn't wasting my time with him. Now, number 2, I looked at a Champion 3,000 watt generator, and it was on for, it was about $200, I think. These are Canadian prices. I found it on Facebook Marketplace, 3 hours away in Edmonton. And I knew I had to go up there. So I messaged the guy and I said, I'm pretty interested. What can we do? Can I come see it or whatever? He's like, oh yeah, it's in good shape. He said, it's beat up. He told me he used it for a business, but he said it ran last time he turned it off. And he said it was it'd been like 6 months since it's been started. I thought, okay, here we go. So anyway, I said, you know what? I'd like to come and see it. And if I remember correctly, it was $200 he wanted for it. So he messaged me about a day later. He said, hey, if you're not interested, it's okay. But I just pulled it out, tried to start it, and I couldn't get it to start. And he said, if you want it, $75 and it's yours. I thought, oh my, that's a good price. Now, the reason I was still okay with the idea was, number one, he told me it did run, but then he was honest with me to tell me it didn't. But before he told me it didn't, we got talking about it and everything, and it ran perfectly fine up until it stopped running, until he turned it off and let it sit. So to me, I was sure it was bad gas. I thought, yeah, I mean, I took a chance and the price was low enough that, I could do okay on it. And I thought, you know what? There's a really good chance if it ran until it was shut off and now it just won't start, it's probably bad gas. Now, it may have been on the other one as well, but the price wasn't good enough and the guy wasn't honest. So I bought it. I brought it home. I put about a quarter of a bottle of seafoam in the generator and I started pulling on it. And about 20, 30 pulls later, the thing started up. It kicked a big cloud of smoke out. It was a mess. It was awful. I changed the oil, put a new spark plug in it, put a new air filter in it, ran it for a year and a half, and then sold it for $150. So when you're looking at a used generator, there's a lot of things you can look at, but those are 10 questions that you can ask when you're looking to buy a used generator. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. This was a fun one. I always enjoy it. This was a pre-recorded, so and if you're listening on the podcast, thank you very much. If you want to know more about me, guys, toolmantim.co. That's the easiest way. If you want more videos like this, three episodes of the podcast every week: preparedness, reparedness, home maintenance, backup power. Hit the subscribe button here on YouTube or grab it on your favorite podcatcher, whether it's iTunes or any of the other ones. I'm on them all. So, and if you're looking for good gear recommendations, toolmantim.shop. Right now, I have over 100 items on there with another 150 coming. All stuff I've used over the years in my handyman business that's made me money or saved me money. Tons of different categories, including my absolute favorite, preparedness gear. Whole bunch of cool stuff on there. So run by, check it out. Even if you don't buy anything, but you just start your Amazon shopping from there, it'll support the content I create. And I'll be grateful. So thank you guys very much. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.